A very good evening to everybody watching. Thank you for joining us tonight on the evening review. My name is Toivo Njebela, your host. Tonight on the platform, we are joined by Armando Pieters. He is a student activist, also a member of the European Union Delegation Advisory Board, and he is here to express his views about a very important event that is happening this week at Nanso. They are having an elective congress on Wednesday this week, and a lot of things going into that congress do not sit very well with Mr. Pieters, and he is here to reflect on some of those things. Thank you very much, Armando, for making time. Maybe give me a sense of what it is that unsettles you as far as Nanso currently, the current leadership, and also what is going to happen at this Congress is concerned.
Yes, and thank you very much, Toivo, for having me. By way of introduction, as you introduced me rightfully, I am Armando Pieters. I am a student, firstly. I am a youth activist, a community activist of note, of course. I equally am also a member of the European Union Advisory Board. Yes, I'm amongst others. It will take a short while if I am to introduce myself further. But again, Toivo, let me on the onset say that there are a few things that people can never take away from me. And those are things that I do not need people to validate me on. And to just mention two things to you that people can never take away from me is that, firstly, I am a member of the SWAPO party that nobody can take away from me. And I do not need a membership card to show that I'm a member. My heart is SWAPO, and nobody can ever take away the love that I have for Nanso. And it is because of that love that I'm seated here today to give a message to the elective, to the delegates to the elective congress of Nanso, which is anticipated to take place over 3 days, which is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But Toivo, what you need to understand is that we cannot sit here. I, as a child from the house, cannot sit in a house when we have problems in our house, when we have things that we still need to address. So we need to address these things so that when our neighbors come to our house, we do not shame each other and we do not become laughing stocks. Therefore, Toivo, there is a lot that is happening within Nanso, and this needs to be addressed. So to me, Nanso cannot go into their congress and act as if everything is okay. They cannot go into Congress and elect another executive committee while there's so much to be addressed. For instance, Congress is happening on Wednesday, and students do not even know who's standing for the position of national executive. It is discreet. This is an organization, Toivo, that is supposed to represent the student population. This is not Central Intelligence battleground there. This is a student organization. So we ought to know, even by the past 2 months, we already needed to know. And someone might argue, Toivo, and say, it is out there. But to who is it out? Is it out to the Nanso, those that are close to the leadership? I do not want to call them the Nanso elite, but is it close to those that are close to the leadership? That know that who will become the next president? Because that's how it looks to me, Toivo. Yeah. If it was open, we all would have known. But it looks like the leadership has already determined who will become the leader of Nanso next year. Or what is the underlying reason behind why we do not yet know who the next leader of Nanso will be? Yeah.
Tell me, is it, because I would imagine that Nanso has its own platforms, social media in particular, and maybe those that have keen interest in their affairs, including candidates for a process like that would be there. Are we saying there's no such thing, or are you saying it's not enough? What are we saying?
No. On their social media, it is of course, because when I hear Congress, I need to know that there are competitors at Congress. I am guided by the normal democratic procedure to evolve that even political parties within Namibia, reputed political parties, for instance, I was for a party too, when there's Congress, we already know who is vying for the position, and it is around in the public domain on the social medias, but there's nothing of that sort. We have not yet established who is then next to become the next leadership. I do not have a problem with what the procedure is that they are trying to follow, but mine is that allow democracy to take place. And if you have your structures that you are following, come back to the student population and tell them these are the reasons behind why we have not disclosed who will be the candidates that will be vying. And not only the candidature is not the only problem. We are not even aware of where Congress will be taking place. Until today, I heard in a corridor that it will be taking place at Diebra. That's to how far. Just today, I found out that it will be taking place at Diebra. So it leads me to the question of Toivo. Is there something that we have not understood about Nanso? Or has Nanso perhaps deviated from its core mandate? Because that will bring me to my next point. That Nanso, in my perspective, in my honest perspective, Nanso has lost its effectiveness.
In what sense?
Where is Nanso to be seen? Nanso was a force to be reckoned with in the past. Nanso was a force to be reckoned with, not the social media Nanso. No, Nanso was a force to be reckoned with. Veterans like Maureen Hindabo and them, they know what the founding principles of Nanso was. Nanso had the student population at heart. It was the students before anything else. But today, the morale has died. If we can see an organization which is supposed to represent the student population in Namibia finding itself in a political party's battles, fighting between two candidates, is that what we call student leadership? Is that what we call one textbook, one learner? No. Then already we have a problem.
When you're saying candidates, referring to candidates of Nanso positions, or is it political, or is it in the SWAPO party itself?
No. It really is not. It really is not confined to the SWAPO party, but it is confined to what the everyday operations, so to put it, have become in Nanso. Because Nanso has become so influential, somewhat should I say, in also the Congress elections of student representative bodies at universities. That Nanso also has a candidate who is on their ticket and who needs to be lobbied for by Nanso.
But how do you? Isn't that how it should be? You as an organization, you want to be influential in student affairs at universities and elsewhere.
Yes.
And you want your leg to be in there through student representative councils or other bodies, student bodies on campuses. That can be bad.
Yes, that cannot be bad until when two comrades both want to run for the position and national executive has their preferred candidate, and then at the expense of this candidate, this one reigns.
But that is fine. I mean, in democracy, because
that is fine, Toivo, when national executive does not have an influence in it, because we are two comrades. National executive should not be in between. National executive should disabsent themselves and allow our comrades to determine who they want. But the moment national executive is pulling to one person, what are you doing to the other comrade in the organization?
Yeah. Let me put this to you, Armando. You see, student politics and even the high-level politics, the SWAPOs of this world, the PDMs of this world, because this idea of neutrality for me troubles me sometimes. I understand, for example, that in SWAPO, when President Hage Geingob chose not to endorse anyone at the 2022 Congress, there were a lot of issues. Some people saying, oh, he doesn't like his vice president at the time, Netumala Ndaitwa. Others saying, as a matter of fact, that's how it should be, that you stay neutral all the time. But for me, What if Armando is a candidate between those two and he's actually the worst? Maybe there are just things that we know about his leadership style, his ideologies, and they do not align with us. What would be wrong to say no, but in this case we have to take a side and make sure that Armando doesn't win?
Yeah, I love that point that you are pointing at, Toivo, because I really concur with that point, because sometimes we know that this candidate Armando that we want to choose, Armando, he is incompetent.
Yeah.
He will not be effectively lead this organization or whatever portfolio we are giving him. If you are to put it in such a scenario, then we are able to understand it. But once we have two capable candidates and we see that all the support is pulling to one person, that's where we have the problem.
Without an
explanation. So I feel from the onset, even if, because I also say that, Toivo, sometimes I'm not a fan of democracy, but sometimes we need to allow democracy to dictate who will come out best and not who aligns more with what the executive wants or who moves around more with the executive or because who is next in the line. No, that is the problem that I have. But if we can sit down and see that, no, this person is not a suitable candidate, and then everybody concurs, then of course, but we cannot deprive someone of their chances because national executive is pulling to one side.
What, as a student yourself, because I suppose Nanso is not only there to serve its members, I don't know whether they are a membership organization where you might register as a member, but I assume even if you are not a member, the mandate still covers students as a population. What in the work of Nanso has been, do you see the presence of Nanso in your life as a student? Do you see the impact of Nanso in your life? Do you see them advocating for your welfare as a student?
Yes, thank you very much for bringing me to that point, Toivo. Really, let us call a spade a spade. Nanso has effect in some areas that we cannot take away from Nanso. But you know why Nanso takes effect, Toivo? It is not because the collective leadership wants the effect to take place in Nanso. No. There are young student leaders in Nanso that still exist, that have the passion for serving the student population, for serving the trainees, for serving the learners. And these are the people that wholeheartedly are servants of the students and of the learners. They go all out on the access to education campaigns that Nanso has. Those are servants. And of course, if I could call names, I would have, but I am having it in my mind, and as I'm seated here, I'm smiling because of the passion that they have for serving the student population. They go all over the place, and these are people that are equally hurt as I am for how things are happening in Nanso, and that the focus from the students has already drifted, and that it is not about serving the student population. And this also causes frustration into these students, leaders that I'm talking about, that have the zeal and that still have the drive in order to make things happen, because they are pushing so much, they are giving in so much. But unfortunately, Toivo, they are not. I do not know why they do not grow within the ranks of the organization. There must be reasons behind why they do not grow. Because for me, as a non-member of Nanso and as a spectator from outside, I would expect that this person that is working so hard needs to, then when there is a position, of course they might have a constitution, and that might be the argument that constitutional procedures might be followed. But my question might be that how many times are constitutional procedures followed? Questionable. How many times are constitutional procedures followed? I leave a question mark on that. Nanso can explain that, because I do not know how they deal with their appointments. But many people that I have seen that were very much vocal within Nanso have left. So many assets have walked out of Nanso. Of course, as I said to Ivo, they still have an effect where they can. Of course, I know what I'm talking about, because when the access to the free Wi-Fi discussion had started in Parliament, and when the then Deputy Minister, or if he's still current Deputy Minister of Labour, tabled it in Parliament, I called the then SG of Nanso, and I told him Nanso needs to move on this matter. And he said, of course, Armando, we will look into the matter. And a while later, I see that they met the Parliamentary Standing Committee on the matter. So it shows us that they still have the interest of the students at heart, despite everything that is still happening within the Nanso organized politics. Of course, for example, the campaign that they had last year or the year before, I'm just lost with the numbers, on the 40,000 or something student membership drive or something like that. That is something that pulled together all the students. But here's the catch, Toivo. There were many students, many learners at the Khomas Stadium. I was there. I was standing in the crowd, Toivo. And when the time came for the remarks by the leadership, all the students were just making noise among themselves. The learners were making noise amongst themselves, and they wanted artists to sing. And then the speeches were not read. I was there to listen. But then unfortunately, I was deprived of that because the learners and the students did not want to hear the speeches. But in the past, Toivo, when Nanso convenes, all the learners and the students listened. We were humbled by Nanso's presence. Where did Nanso go wrong, Toivo? That today, when Nanso convenes students, they need popular artists in order to lobby the students. They need popular who to be there in order to lobby the students. Where did the passion and the love for just being there? And when Nanso calls us, we all need to convene. Where did that go? That we need artists to push us to get there.
I hear you. We go for a short break and then return with Armando Pieters.
Welcome to What's Cooking, where culinary passion meets expert insights.
Somebody must really want to cook and want to cook good food.
Immerse yourself in the bustling world of professional kitchens as top chefs create mouth-watering dishes. Join us for in-depth interviews as our host explores the experiences and expertise of our guest chefs. Don't miss out. Tune in to What's Cooking on NTV every Friday at 2100 hours and let the culinary adventure begin.
The conversation continues on the evening review with Armando Pieters, as a student and community activist. Now, congresses, by their very nature, are not only occasions for voting officials or office bearers. There are also conventions to unpack serious agendas and chart a path going forward, in this case, in favor of students.
Yes.
What are the key things that affect students today that, these pertinent challenges that students are facing that you think Nanso has not addressed in the past 4 or 5 years, and that they must really take bold resolutions to tackle those?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much for bringing me to that point, Toivo. It really brings me to why I am seated here. Because sitting here, I am not seated here to hate on Nanso. I am seated here as a concerned child of Nanso. Of course, I might not be a member, but those, as I said earlier on, one of the things you can never take away from me is that I love Nanso wholeheartedly. So the reason I'm seated here is to tell Toivo that delegates to Nanso that when you go into your deliberations, have the Namibian child at heart. Have the Namibian child and the student at the core of your discussions. Have the trainees at the core of your discussion. Go in there, and once you come out with pertinent questions to the leading government and ask them, where is the opportunities that you are creating for the students? When will NSFAF stop being a loan and then become a grant? When will we stop having the discussion of NSFAF is a loan and start having the discussion of NSFAF has become a grant? Of course, someone might argue and say, Toivo, slowly government is now turning NSFAF also into a grant, and there's a component of grant. But Toivo, it is very competitive. It is overly competitive. Some students out there study very hard to get to university, just to enter university. And then yet they need to go and get a loan in order to cover for their fees, but they come from a disadvantaged background. But here's the catch. The grant that government is to give is to, you need to have above how many points to get this. But someone is just pushing here to, you might not be academic, but you're just pushing in order to get into a university and make a difference at home. So when will the grant cater for someone that is just a hard worker and not a smart, disadvantaged student, you understand? So to see how these grants can also somewhat become equal. Another also to the Wi-Fi situation. When will the students get access to Wi-Fi? The motion that was moved by the Honorable Deputy Minister of Labour, that was a very good one, and I commend Nanso for intervening on that one and also giving in their 2 cents. When will our students start getting access to Wi-Fi wherever they are? In particular, I was a former City of Windhoek Junior Councillor, so my idea would be that I would see Nanso engaging with organizations such as the National Council of Namibia, Junior National Council of Namibia, the Children's Parliament of Namibia, the City of Windhoek Junior Council, and see how best they can sit around the stakeholders and try and lobby government in order to get, I'm speaking now for in instance sake for Windhoek, how we can get Wi-Fi for those in the informal settlement in order to get access to Wi-Fi. Because sometimes, Toivo, you might just have one class and this class is online and you need to take taxi to go to UNAM from wherever you are in the informal settlement, while you could have used the $20 to buy bread and then you just join from the smart device, which you can afford if you get NSFAF to join your class. But then you do not have internet access, so you just have $20. So you'd rather take the Scania buses to UNAM and then go and sit in one class. And then get back again. It does not make sense. So when will we have the discussion of Wi-Fi in the informal settlements? Of course, community libraries have Wi-Fi, but sometimes you want to be in the comfort of your house when attending your class. Another very good example is the if these are some things that I want Nanso to be discussing with government on, when will we as a government I know that government, those institutions also need to pay their expenses and so on, but when will the discussion start around free higher education for the very, very, very disadvantaged students in Namibia? NSFAF has a system where they determine who needs it more. So universities could also have a system to determine who needs it more. That is one avenue that could be explored. Nanso needs to be in these discussions. Nanso needs to be championing all these things and many other proposals from other students who are out there that have day-to-day challenges. I want to make a good example with myself. When I came to the University of Namibia, when I got to UNAM, there was no one to hold my hand. I was the first in my family to get to UNAM. And when I got to UNAM, I was all alone. I did not know how to start my application. I did not know where to give in my documents. I did not know what is student affairs. I did not know. I was totally out. I am in Windhoek. I am a student leader, as I rightfully said. But I did not know. I'm from Windhoek. But my parents are from the south. So but then I that lives in Windhoek, a former junior councillor, a vital young person in Namibia, did not know how to go about that. And once I got home, I was very lucky that I was able to call the Deputy Minister of Finance and I told her I am stuck. And she led me through the entire process and told me, no, go to the office and then ask for the student assistance. They always have student assistance there. They might be able to help you. So I was lucky that I had someone to call. But imagine someone coming from the south, coming from the north. You have not brought your parents with and you land there. And the first thing I turned around and looked for was the Nanso help desk. Nanso help desk was nowhere to be seen. The SRCs, I did not find anyone there. But I found one school rep who helped me fill in my application. And she assisted me with the application process. And when I came to register, I had to find my way around there. But what I'm expecting is that Nanso is on the ground like it was in the past. Standing around there, Not students looking for Nanso, but Nanso looking for its populace to help and guide through the process.
I hear you. So just to take you back to one point that you mentioned earlier, and that is a point around what you perceive to be the secrecy around who the candidates are and stuff like that. Do you think that Nanso has also become, in recent years, a sort of channel through which people target higher positions? We have seen people being appointed to parliament, some of them becoming ministers or deputy ministers or just ordinary members of parliament through the Nanso structure, to the extent that at one point the SWAPO Youth League was very, very
vital,
unhappy that, because they were always, you know, whenever you wanted to make youth deployments into government, you go to SPYL and fetch those guys. SWAPO deployees, of course, we're talking about SWAPO deployees now. And there was a point in recent years when SWAPO Youth League members were very, very unhappy with the president, that he was skipping SPYL and going to Nanso to pick those deployees. Do you think, therefore, that maybe some of these perceived secrecies are around, you know, people squeezing for those positions? Let's have a small group. Let's not subject ourselves to a lot of competition, so that we grab those positions and increase our own opportunities to be deployed in government.
I think, Toivo, you have hit the nail where it belongs. And with me, Toivo, I do not have a problem with Nanso being another avenue for exploring or scouting potential, because potential needs to be found. And unfortunately, senior leaders cannot go into houses and identify, but they would rather follow already existing structures to go on about that. But that is where you bring me to my point, Toivo. I think Nanso has become overly excited with the influence that it has gained from national government and the recognition that it has gained from national government, that now it is no longer about what the student population wants, but everybody has now somewhat understood Nanso as a gateway to growth. Of course, I don't have a problem with it being a gateway to growth. Everybody needs to grow. But it has become so much to an extent that we have forgotten what the primary mandate of Nanso was. That everybody feels like, if this person has potential, I'd rather step on your feet, Toivo, or on your head, and your potential will not be seen because I am the next in the queue. I am the next. When I was a junior in Nanso, I also waited for my seniors. So who are you to come and with your potential, you want to be seen now by the leaders, and you want to be, and then you are stepping on others. And you know what that does extensively, Toivo, to us two, Toivo, who are comrades within Nanso, and they are doing this to each other. We think that we are doing it to ourselves. But in the process, Armando's brother is seeing this, and he looked up to Nanso, and he was active in mobilizing and recruiting for Nanso. But he sees that while we are here fighting for the interest of the students, the learners, and the trainees, our leaders are here fighting for being next in the queue, being the next to be seen, being the next one in the queue, and so on. And what does that do to my brother? He then withdraws from Nanso. This is another potential young person who could have contributed in the organization that is withdrawn from the organization because of the organized politics that is being played there. And his primary aim was what, Toivo, when he came into Nanso? It was to serve the student populace. It was to grow within Nanso. It was to gradually grow and be seen. Like many young people also, they tell me that, Armando, the only space which made me come out of my bubble or to be known or to be seen was Nanso. So I appreciate Nanso a lot. I do not have a problem with that. But what I would rather want to see is that if there is such things happening, that people want to be seen, let people want to be seen in the organization by the organization's structures and the leadership, but not the leadership wanting to be seen by national leadership and then here at the expense of the organization, because that makes the organization lose its essence. And the reality is that many people might not want to admit it, Toivo, but Nanso has lost many young, vibrant, strong characters because of such organized politics.
I hear you. Thank you, my friend.
And not only has Nanso lost strong, vibrant young people who were on these small, young structures, but Nanso has recently, and also throughout this executive team, Nanso has lost a lot of executives.
I hear you.
There are so many acting positions in Nanso, but nobody's speaking about that.
We've run out of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, wonderful. That is Armando Pieters, and he's a student activist who is interested in the welfare of Namibian students. Thank you for watching.